And originally I wanted to kind of like do some work in the humanitarian field, and I was just kind of like researching, and then I can't remember the exact moment that New Orleans kind of, you know, I came across that there was hundreds of like non-profit organisations that are just crying out for help, and for some reason I was like rather aghast. It was like 3 years on, 2.5 years on, and I was like, surely they must have got things sorted by now. So I was all right. Well, I want to go and see what this is all about. You know, I've heard that Louisiana is far removed, like kind of like culturally, from the rest of America. So I just found it, you know, really interesting from that point of view. So yeah, that was the main impetus, and I thought, okay, an architect is going to be needed there, you know. So it seemed kind of obvious then, you know, that was my kind of path had been kind of mapped out for me, you know. New Orleans would be about the size, let's say, population-wise, it's around 400, 500,000. So I'd imagine it's around the size of perhaps Belfast. I'm not even sure what the population of Belfast is, but the equivalent of that, you know, and there's something like, I don't know, is it something like 80,000 odd like homes were destroyed, you know. So that's you know, outside of New Orleans as well, including the Gulf Coast, parts of Biloxi, and Biloxi suffered a different type of devastation because it bore the brunt of it was right on the coast, so it got the waves just like kind of smashing right up into it, you know. New Orleans was more you know, it was affected by the hurricane, but basically because the levees that were to kind of like contain the water weren't, they were deficient, you know, and in terms of the construction, and that's basically they failed, you know. So a lot of the, you know, and basically it is surrounded by water as well, so like the hurricane kind of funneled that, and like, you know, but in terms of scale, I mean, you're talking about a city the size of Belfast, you know. Biloxi would be probably the size of, I don't know, God, let me think, not like Port Stewart, you know, but it was absolutely flattened, you know. The photography in the exhibition, there's 21 images made up of portraits of individuals from New Orleans that I came across, and I suppose the kind of urban grain, the kind of in the aftermath of the Hurricane Katrina. So other than that, some of these other images are more or less kind of basic imagery that's going to be knocking about, you know. Some of the famous footage in the 7th Ward. This is the famous grocers, and that kind of became an iconic image because a lot of people would identify with it. They knew that building, they'd been there every day, and then to see there was kind of water that was like 20 feet high, you know, it was totally submerged, so that became a kind of like one of the defining images of Hurricane Katrina, as did the one of the Superdome. So yeah, these are just to kind of like pad out, I suppose. These are visual references for the text. I mean, these people have absolutely had their kind of lives ripped apart, and a lot of them have kind of lost loved ones, and their families have kind of been, you know, dispersed, you know, across the states. So, but everyone, they just like show like kind of real raw determination that, you know, I think because this is an annual thing, the hurricane is, they're always kind of like, you know, living in expectation of the arrival of the next hurricane. So it's kind of like fed into their mentality. You know, they're really kind of like robust and kind of like durable, kind of like people, but they're really kind of down to earth. And yeah, I mean, everyone's got a harrowing story, and everyone's like eager to kind of tell you, you know. And I suppose you know, it gets occasionally you might feel that you're kind of like capitalizing on their sorrow and grief, but like a way, you know, is to kind of like I found it just like really like cathartic, just to kind of like put me back into the work. And I just found it like I found it like totally, there was absolute clarity about like kind of why you were there, you know. You were there just to help, and the people like really appreciated it. They just couldn't do enough to kind of like convey that to you, you know. So, and they know how to party, and they're just wonderful people, you know. So